All right, good morning, everybody. So, as you all know, we have been working on this MyStory website for the past 8-9 weeks. Before Seamus and Phoebe get into where we are with the prototype and where we are with development, I'm going to kind of do a little retrospective of where we started and where we are now. So, this is our Trello board. I know for a while during the development phase of the prototype and the research, we kind of fell behind a little bit because we had not anticipating how difficult it was going to be to find users. So that kind of put us behind a little bit. So for a while, our Trello board kind of became a little useless. We had to keep making updates to it. But as of today, we actually feel like we are caught up to where we wanted to be by the end of the semester. And in some ways, we're a little bit ahead of where we want to be. So we really kind of felt like we really pushed it to the end zone the last couple of weeks. So the MyStory so far, so as we were had mentioned previous weeks, the concept behind this was to engage with older generations who may not be as fluid with digital media and creating a user experience for them that is more accessible for those who aren't tech savvy. We also wanted to provide a platform for users to share stories with those close to them. So this is so at the beginning, after we figured out what we wanted to do for our concept, we started looking at mood boards and user profiles to kind of figure out who our audience was and the overall style we wanted to go with. From there, we started doing a lot of research. This included research into fonts. This included research into color schemes, design aesthetics. So we ended up kind of moving forward with scheme overview for a lot of stuff because we found that in research that a lot of the seniors actually kind of like that. It kind of gives them more visual representation of what they're used to seeing in reality. So this is just kind of a recap of some of the things that we've already touched base on before with the colors and how they should provide a high contrast and that blues and greens evoke kind of a sense of peacefulness and are emotionally supporting with light browns and tans for warmth. Also the fonts, highly stylized fonts are hard to read. You want to stay away from fonts that are kind of thick, thin within. So these are all the things that we kind of gained from our research at the beginning. From there, we started kind of putting together samples of work to test on users. This included font samples, this included color samples, and then we kind of took them in and tried to show them to our users and figure out what was clear and easy to read for them. We also looked into research for UI preferences such as icons. They should be clear as to what they are. We ended up moving away from icons, but it's nice to know that we kind of wanted to shift back to that. We kind of have a clear way to go forward. We don't have to do much research on that. Buttons should be clear with the text that's inside of them. They should be kind of rounded around the edges to kind of prevent that sharp kind of sense of feeling. The font should be kind of 16-point or larger so that they're clear and easy to read. And help features should be easily accessible to our users. This includes good tutorial modes or like subtle pop-ups to help them guide them through the process. So after we kind of did all that, we started kind of looking into site mapping and sketching. I know one of the things that we were kind of struggling with at the beginning when we were trying to get a hold of our users was the kind of pushing forward with this before we were really ready to. So we were getting ahead of ourselves with the wireframing after we did this. We kind of pulled it back a little bit and started conducting more research and then started doing more testing with users. And that led us to our first successful user testing experience. And this is where we kind of showed our font samples, did our surveys with SurveyMonkey, and we did our color samples as well. We got a lot of useful feedback, and from this we were able to move forward into wireframing. And we started off kind of like with all different kind of ideas of where we wanted to go. Was it going to be a kind of a news article feature? Was it going to be just big kind of icons? Was it going to be more streamlined with a list? So we were able to kind of piece together some of the ideas from all of us and kind of come up with a subtle way to move forward. And we started kind of beginning with our mid-fidelity prototyping, and this is where it really started to kind of come together for the feedback we were getting from users and through the feedback we were giving each other. And you'll start to see the evolution of it here. Finally, through all that, once we kind of had that done, through our research, we were able to kind of like solidify style guide. As always, as we go through the development process next semester, this thing will change, but we feel like we're at a really solid point with this. We went from lots of colors to a little bit of colors and found a happy medium in the middle. Did our final round of testing with that in place with the mid to high fidelity prototype, which James is going to show you in a second here.
We made a lot of progress on the prototype since last week. We tried to narrow it down to just a couple of colors so that the skeuomorphic design could really show through. And we also added, we also tried to enhance the skeuomorphic design by creating an actual bookshelf, as well as bringing some books with real book covers and colors. And I think in doing this, it kind of helps because there was a lack of color beforehand, and now with these book covers and the bookshelf, it sort of brings it all together. So this is the home page, and you can see public stories here. You can also sort by themes, and then you can also search through public stories. So I'm going to show you what signing up looks like. So you hit sign up here, or you could sign up down here. Alright, so hit sign up, and you enter your information, and you hit submit, and then you're taken to the home page. And as a new user, you would not have any stories in your bookshelf. You also wouldn't have any contacts in your newsfeed, which is why it looks very blank. But what we wanted to do was make it very clear on the beginning page for new users that there was a bunch of different things that they could do. So we wanted to display that all here. If users wanted to check out their contact story, they can click here. Oh, all right. First, when you get on here, you can add an image to your page if you don't want this generic little icon by just hitting add image, and it'll pop up this little generic Apple screen, and then you can select image, and it'll put it in there for you. The next thing is sorted through contact stories, so you can go through, and we decided that we would have 3 different bookshelves because that's something that users were very confused by, is that all of the stories, MyStories, public stories, and contact stories were all in the same shelf, and you had to use the sort by to look through them. This way you can use the sort as a filter, and then you can show either your stories, contact stories, and public stories. So it's a little bit more specific, and it helps users understand. Next is public stories, and for new users, they will have access to public stories, whereas they have no contact stories, none of their own stories. And here, they'll be able to view any of these stories, so I'll show you one of them. So it will open up like this. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get page flipping too good, but I tried my best. So this would be what a story viewer would look like. We found that when we had the profile of the person who wrote the story on the left side, the person kind of became disinterested in what they were looking at. So by removing that and just making the sole focus the story, and then having just 2 buttons simply to go next and back, made it easy for users to stay focused and engaged with reading. So you can hit next page, and then at the end of each book, there is a little bit of information about the author. You can also like their story, send them a contact request, because this was something that seemed like it was going to be an issue for people. So by just being able to connect right from reading a story, seemed like it made sense. Also, if you liked what you read and you wanted to see more, this was also an easy way to view all of their stories if their page was public. And then if you were done reading and you didn't want to see any more, you could go back to your page. And then at any point during story viewing, you could just hit the X out button, and it'll prompt you to say, are you sure you want to stop? password, and then you can hit login, and it'll bring you to a similar page as a new users page, except for it will prompt you with a greeting that's appropriate for the time of the day, and then ask maybe a question about what you want to write, or if you have any ideas. And then, as you can see here, all of these books are from Marge Anderson in her MyStories collection. And then we can go to her contact stories, as well as public stories. So same view for new users and this user. We can also click on, we can also go to a contacts page. And then from here, we can click on any of these contacts and then go directly to their bookshelf. So I'll show what clicking on Jack Hansen's bookshelf looks like. So it takes you to his shelf, and what we decided to do is remove the bar that's on a personal user's bookshelf, because it didn't seem to make sense to sort by MyStory contacts and then public when you're on someone else's shelf, so we completely removed that. We're not sure if we want to add something in there, just because now it's a space that's not being used. But for now, we wanted to remove it because it didn't really make sense. Alright, so then the next thing is account settings. We also changed, beforehand it had the most recent stories from your contacts, just like it does on your homepage. And the reason why we decided to remove it was because this is a page where you have your secure information and your personal information, and to have that mingled in with most recent stories and all that made it cluttered, and also users were less, didn't use it as much. Alright, so the next thing I want to show is how to create a story. So users would go ahead and hit start new story. Not too much has changed from this process, but we tried to tie the design together a little bit better. We also wanted to make the progress bar a little bit easier to understand. So you would click on one of these themes, and then you would be prompted to enter a title. So you can go ahead and enter a title. We set a 24-character minimum or maximum because I did some research. I found that most titles are around that, if not less. And we wanted to make sure that users could have a long enough title that they can be creative, but then also not too long that when it comes to actually showing it on the book, it's not super small. So that's the reasoning behind that. So then users can go ahead and enter the title. It'll tell them as they type how many characters they've used, so that they're not getting to the end and then being frustrated as to why they can't complete the title. So now that they have their title written, they can save it. And then they come to the dedication page. And for some of our users, they didn't really care for a dedication, so we decided to make this optional. If users don't want to, they can just skip straight to writing the story. But in the case that they do, they're able to enter a dedication here. So for this story, we'll enter a dedication for my friend Alfred Jones and save. The next thing that we changed about the storytelling process was the way that stories would be written. Beforehand, we had it so that users were actually writing into the book, but this was a challenge for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it had too much clicking, and we weren't really sure how we could manage it in code and just developing it. So we figured that by showing them a blank page, like a Word document that showed their title, their dedication, and then allow them to start writing a story, it would make more sense. And then we could then go and format it to look like a book afterwards. So users would start entering their story in here, and then they scroll down. This is actually only 2.5 pages. I know it seems like a lot, writing your story, you're able to preview your book in the story mode format. And in here, you're also going to be able to add images. This was another issue that we had before. We had it so that the image was on the right side of the book, and then writing was on the left side. So you could like place an image between the book, and this was confusing, and then also going to be kind of a pain in terms of development. So what we decided to do as a solution, we haven't tested it yet, but was to have the preview of the story, and then also be able to add images while you're in the preview mode, so that you're not disrupting the writing, and then also the image adding. So at any point you'll be able to add an image in between these, and then it'll always put it on the right hand side, so whatever is on the right hand side will just move over to the left. And that's sort of how we thought through that. But we'll need to test that to make sure that works. So then users will be able to skip through the pages, and then when they want to add an image between the text, this will pop down. They can select which image they like, and it'll show up on the right hand side. Then they can keep going, and they want to add another image, put it in there, and that's it. So once they're done previewing their story, they think it looks good, they're able to save it. And then in this saving or sharing mode, they're able to select who can see the story. So we decided to get rid of icons because they were not fitting well. I think part of this was because we wanted to use flatter icons, but we also have a skeuomorph design, so it was becoming a little bit too much. So these were the words that we decided to use. Just me, only I can see the story. My contacts can see the story, and then anyone can see the story in public. So this is also something that we're going to need to test with users to make sure that they understand this. And then lastly, you hit my contacts, and then it would take you to like a confirmation save page where it'll tell you your story, dedication, tell you how many pages you wrote, how many pictures you used, and then in any of these you'll be able to edit or go back to writing, change your sharing preference. And this is basically just for ease of use and not having to go all the way back through all of this process. So then you can go and hit save story, and it will tell you your story has been saved, and then you can either start a new story or go back home. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. You want to show them the developer? to do a lot of that when we're back at home. So when we get back here, we'll be able to do a majority of the development without having to worry about too much more prototyping and design. That's what we're looking for.
We kind of came to the consensus that because getting a hold of users was so problematic this semester, we're going to work on getting a jump on it so that over the course of the break, we're actually going to set stuff up in advance so that when the semester starts, we'll already have a schedule of where we can go to these places. Because as we mentioned previous weeks, the one place that we did find immense success with was welcomed with open arms, even said that it